Check, 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 check. Check, check. Hi. How are you? Happy New Year. Check, check, check. Are you using your... Check, 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 check. That's good enough. Mm-hmm.
Test 1, 2, 1, 2.
Okay. Check.
Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to B'nai Israel. I guess you all know where you are. But we're so excited to welcome back our college students. So nice, and thank you all for sharing your Shabbat with us. And we're looking forward to hearing about your college or some of your college adventures, and Jewish life on your campuses. So, please, we're going to welcome Shabbat with Hine Ma Tov, page 128. If you need the words in your prayer book, but. And we'll try to do it as a round. Hine ma tovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. All right, So that is, we'll let you start, and then I'll start with this group. And Lisa, I'm counting on you. Hine ma tovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu I never do rounds right. You were supposed to go on. Shevet hakim gam yachad. Hine tovu manayim. Shevet hakim gam yachad. Shevet hakim gam yachad. Hine matov. Shevet hakim gam yachad. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom and welcome. We now turn to page 120. Patrice and Howard lead us this evening in Hadlakat Hanerot, kindling the lights of Shabbat. Candlelighting will be found on page 120.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our light, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light. You listening?
Yeah. You did it.
I know, I'm shocked. Or not. Come on. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu ma'ahu ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Please join with me. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We now turn to page 138 for Lachado D, found on pages 138 and 139. We'll be singing the first, the second, and the ninth verse as we welcome in Shabbat.
And at this point, I want to introduce Ethan Durnell, who will be playing keyboard tonight, who gave up his Friday night to join us. So thank you, Ethan.
And is also headed to college soon enough.
Yes. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, hishmianu el ham yechad, Adonai echad, u'shemo echad, l'shem tiferet v'litila, l'chadodi, l'krat kala, penei Shabbat, nikabila.
146, for those who are able, we rise for the Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
I read on the bottom of page 148, Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening.
Baruch atah Adonai HaMahariv HaRavim.
And on the bottom of page 150, Praise to Adonai who loves your people Israel.
Baruch atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Page 152.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated. The Ve'ahavta, page 154.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha B'chol levavecha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'otecha v'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha Vishinantam levanecha, v'dibartam paham, b'shivtecha b'veitecha, uv'levtecha v'aterech, u'shokbecha uv'kumecha, u'kshartam le'ot aliotecha, V'hayu l'totafot b'neinecha u'chtavtam al mizuzot beitecha u'visharecha l'man tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'hitem kedoshim le'lohechem Ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihiot lachem le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Emet. I read at the bottom of page 156. When your children witnessed your dominance, they praised your name in gratitude, and they accepted your sovereignty. Moses, Miriam, and all Israel sang to you together, lifting their voices joyously. Michamocha will be found on page 158. good to be home, right? So we turn to page 161. We read together in English. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. On page 162, Yismechu, the second paragraph down on the page.
Yismechu v'malchutecha shomerei Shabbat. Yismechu v'malchutecha shomerei Shabbat. V'koreonek, v'koreonek. Yismechu v'malchutecha shomerei Shabbat. Amikadashei, Makadashei Shevi. Kulam yismechu v'yitanu mituvecha. Yismechu v'malchutecha shomerei Shabbat. Yismechu v'malchutecha shomerei Shabbat. V'koreonek, v'koreonek. Yismechu v'malchutecha shomerei Shabbat. V'hashvehi ratzita bo. Ratzita bo v'kidashto. Chamdati yamim oto karata. Zecher l'maseh v'reshit. Yismechu v'malchutecha shomerei Shabbat. Yismechu v'malchutecha shomerei Shabbat. V'koreonek, v'koreonek. Yismechu v'malchutecha shomerei Shabbat.
Page 164, for those who are able, we rise. For the tefillah, we chant the prayers beginning on page 164, continuing to page 170.
Adonai, sifatai tiftach, ufiya ki tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdevot V'Imahot, Umevi Gula Livnei V'neihem, L'man Shemo Be'ahava. Melech Kozer Moshiach Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, V'ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei Hakol atah Rab Lehoshia. Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayei Hakol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim V'Rafeh Cholim, Umatir Asurim. ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל.
You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God.
Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
Please be seated. With the news of the anti-Semitic attack in Muncie last Sunday, my good friend and fellow amigo, Monsignor Joseph Donnelly, Father Joe of Sacred Heart Church in Southbury, suggested that Interfaith Action Fellowship, of which we both belong, issue a statement to the papers condemning anti-Semitism and prejudice, and that it be read and discussed from various pulpits within our community this weekend. So what I will read momentarily will also be read in other houses of worship: Sacred Heart, the Albanian American Mosque, Grace Baptist Church, a leading African American institution in Waterbury. It will be read at the Congregational Church in Watertown and in Spanish at the Smyrna Missionaria Church. The statement says, "We strongly condemn the latest heinous attack, hate crime, occurring at a Jewish family's home during a Hanukkah party. Less than a day later, the plague of hatred also erupted at a church in Texas. Standing in solidarity as interfaith partners and people of goodwill, individually and together, we avow hope, resolve, cooperation, continuity, and respect for the right to be different. The disturbing uptick in bigotry and anti-Semitism are clear to every responsible student of current trends. Ongoing violence remains a threat to civic life. We call upon government officials to redouble efforts and allocate resources to ensure the safety of all citizens. It's been said that hate that begins with Jews never ends with Jews. As faith or communal leaders, we are mindful of the Bible's proverb that the eternal God's lamp is the spirit of humankind, revealing all one's innermost parts. We are determined to pursue the blessing of peace, understanding, and security within and beyond as our deepest commitment. With that hope, we now pray Shalom Rav for abundant peace as we sing in Hebrew. It's found on page 178.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Lam Lecha Tasfin Le'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Lam Lecha Tasfin Le'olam. Ki atah melech ador L'kol hashem
Page 180 for our silent prayer.
Say shalom bimroma, huya say shalom aleinu. Oh say shalom bimroma, huya say shalom aleinu. Oh say shalom bimroma. Say shalom bimrama, huya say shalom aleinu. Oh say shalom bimrama, huya say shalom aleinu. Oh say shalom bimrama, huya say shalom.
Page 371. Each Shabbat we pray on behalf of dear ones within and beyond our congregational family who are ill and in need of healing. We voice the hope that they might know comfort and support, that they are not forgotten nor forsaken. I invite you now to raise your hand, and after I silently acknowledge you, speak the names of those persons not on our prayer list, whom likewise we should pray this Shabbat.
let us say, Amen.
I was once at a program for rabbis where the moderator counseled us to limit your questions to questions. The same might be said now, to keep my introduction to an introduction. Deborah Lipstadt, a professor at Emory University, recently wrote of her fear that Jews on college campuses are going underground. Quote, "Most Jewish students on American campuses have not been subjected to overt acts of discrimination or verbal abuse, but many among them feel they have something to lose if they openly identify as Jews. If they are active in Hillel, the Jewish student organization, they may be informally barred from being active in progressive causes, for example, racial and LGBTQ equality, climate change mitigation, and the fight against sexual assault. Those who want to be elected to student government are learning to scrub their resumes clean of any overtly Jewish or pro-Israel activities. They are not abandoning their Jewish identity, they are hiding it. To be sure, this phenomenon hasn't just begun, nor does it describe every campus. But there are statistically documented fast-rising challenges facing Jewish students. This gnawing concern led Lisa Siegel, our president, and our IAC under Chair Hadar Lubin to create tonight's program. Tonight, we discuss the challenge and we promote Jewish pride and solidarity. To do this, we are extremely fortunate to have with us three members who have all been activists, all been leaders: Adam Johnson, Alice Manning, and Paul Sambert. Let us hear from them, and we'll have an opportunity to then ask questions that I trust, when the time comes, will be limited to questions. And so, please, we have 3 seats right here. So Paul and Adam and Alice, please come on down. And if we go in alphabetical order, Adam goes first. Well, it works either way, actually.
Yeah, by the last name, too. How's everyone doing today? Shabbat Shalom.
That's right.
I'm sort of the older one of the three of us. I just completed college in May of this last year. And I was at the George Washington University for 4 years. And as you know, the George Washington University is located in D.C., which is one of the most heavily politically active schools in the country. Just to kind of, I have had 4 years there, so I'm not going to do all 4 years in 2-3 minutes, because I feel like that would take a little longer, and you guys are welcome to ask me questions. But just to kind of give you a quick run through, my first year at GW was completely normal. Jews had no major issues coming onto campus. SJP, I don't know if most of you know what SJP is, Students for Justice in Palestine, sort of the other side of that, were not that active. We had pretty much had a full-scale Hillel showing. I was actually not that active because I thought there was no need until the presidential election in 2016. And not saying it's not about the president, it's not about any of that, but because of the politicalization of everyone, the Jewish pride became a major thing. And actually around that time, after Trump had won his election, BDS became one of the biggest issues on campus. And I, along with multiple other leaders in GW for Israel, the Hillel at GW, fought against multiple campaigns to get BDS passed and to divest any money coming from GW to companies that, quote unquote, hurt the Palestinian cause in Israel. Now, at first, it was sort of an easy battle because we actually have 33% of the campus are Jews, so you'd think that we would have a strong showing. However, a lot of those Jews are very progressive and decided to side with the other side, which created a civil war in between us and the very progressive Jews and the people who are in the SJP, Jewish Voices for Peace, people who say we're protecting Israel by protecting Palestine. And thankfully, once again, I'm not going to take over my whole 2 minutes going over my 4 years, and I'm happy to answer questions as well. But we defeated BDS, thank God, on the first round. But because of some of the new freshmen that came in later that year, we unfortunately not only lost the year after, a anti-Semite who was a graduate student who was on the student council who had said, it wasn't like, oh, he could be like he had a full anti-Semitic rant. It was not censured by the student council and allowed to vote on BDS. And that was sort of the end of my career fighting against that, since we had lost that battle. However, we're rebuilding Hillel, as I've heard from some of my friends still on campus, and it's a difficult battle, and one that, as the rabbi put it, it's a battle that right now is getting worse and worse, and being Jewish is something that has become from an identity to something that you have to hide. And I actually ran for student body president 3 years ago now, and being Jewish was something that would hurt my campaign. And once again, I'm happy to answer more questions about that, and I don't want to take too much time from Alice and Paul here, but don't worry, we'll do questions after everyone speaks. But yeah, that's sort of my quick rundown of my 4 years at GW, but I'm going to give it over to Alice here.
So we'll go to Alice and then...
Yeah,
BDS.
I'm
so
sorry. Yeah.
BDS, I got it. Boycott, divestment, and sanctions. So BDS is the movement which is to single out Israel among all the countries of the world and say that there can be no, that Israel, that Israeli academics, et cetera, should all be boycotted.
Especially from the occupied territories from Palestine. So they would refuse to purchase any products, which instead of attacking Israel on a military front, which, as some of you know, they've failed multiple times to do that, they're now moving on to an economic basis in order to keep Israel from getting a full-scale international connection to the world through finance. But
we're now going to head north of the Mason-Dixon line, from DC to New York City itself. Alice?
Yay. I just finished my first semester at Barnard College. I love it. The Jewish life there is amazing. I feel like I'm fully immersed in my Jewish life every day, which is something that I really love. I'm also in the double degree program with the Jewish Theological Seminary, so that definitely contributes to that. There is like a very big Hillel. It's the biggest Hillel in the country. Barnard's 33% Jewish this year. And that is all great, but BDS is not a fight that we are winning, especially at Columbia. Columbia College earlier this semester passed some BDS legislation, like not even close to winning for us. It's not a fight that like I see an end to on Columbia's campus in my 4 years. It's really hard. There are people fighting. We are fighting it, but it's just not a fight that there's an end to at Columbia because it's so progressive.
So let me just hand the microphone over to Paul. Now, GW is 33% Jewish. Barnard is 33% Jewish. The University of Kansas is...
So our campus has about 18,000 undergrads and close to 2,000 of them are Jewish, so about 10%, which was definitely a pleasant surprise considering the region I'm in. But I guess because of that, it's definitely allowed for us to have a vibrant Jewish community we have Hillel and Chabad, so that gives us pretty good options on that front. Both of them had high holiday programming. They have programming throughout the week, throughout the throughout Shabbat, I guess. And Hillel actually has a Shabbat every year called, what's it called? Mom, what's it called? Oh yeah, Rock Chalk Shabbat. That features like close to 500 Jews, I guess students, people in the community, teachers, whatever, whoever wants to show up. So I guess it's cool we have the support in the community to have that big of an event. Hillel has given me the opportunity to intern for them too. So I'm majoring in journalism and I was their copyright editor the past semester. So they set me up nicely to become, I guess, to pursue what I want in the future. And I definitely give them credit. I was just offered a paid position for the University Daily Kansan. So I guess being part of Hillel and Jewish life definitely helped rather than hindering as it would in some other campuses. I'm also part of AE Pi, which is notoriously Jewish. Instead of shrinking, we actually are growing. My pledge class is the largest pledge class in our chapter's history, and we're currently the largest AE Pi chapter that KU has ever had. We also have ZBT, but ZBT is kind of veered away from their Jewishness. They're about 50% Jewish on our campus, but it's more of like their thinking is the reason Jewish fraternities were created was because we were persecuted and not allowed to join other fraternities. So what would be the point of not allowing non-Jews into a Jewish fraternity? It would be a little awkward, I guess, but they definitely do have a Jewish community and both fraternities mesh well. We go to Hillel, Chabad together. And then there's SCT, which is also a Jewish sorority. There's a Jewish studies program that's pretty developed. So, I mean, yeah, we got a lot of Jewishness, and there's not really any BDS on camp, none. I have not heard the words BDS muttered in the state of Kansas yet. I don't know if that's because it's a more conservative-leaning state or what, but it's definitely a pleasant surprise from what you read in the media, so, yeah.
Great, so let me let you guys hold on to some microphones, and we have other college students here as well. If there's parts of your experience or something happening in your school that you would like to share, please feel free to do so. But I do see some hands now with some questions. Yvette?
You've all had different experiences. One thing you seem to have in common is that you're all activists in school, very much aware of school politics and what schools have available, and you're aware of the anti-Semitism. Now, what would be the feeling of the students who are not as involved or aware as you? Do they know what BDS is? Are they anti-Semitic?
Are you asking like among the Jewish students or the non-Jewish students?
I assume it's the non-Jewish students who are anti-Semitic.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm talking about what is the behavior and the attitude of the average student who is not an activist?
I mean, I know at my school, I mean, it's definitely, since it's not as metropolitan, it doesn't seem to be as politically active necessarily, and when it is, it's more so about the climate or things that are affecting everyday students rather than one particular group, I guess. So,
And what about the other two activists?
At my school, definitely everyone is an activist. I'm not like the one activist in the sea of Barnard College, but so I don't really, there's not like a group that's not an activist who like have like leanings to one way or the other, because everyone has like a pretty strong stance.
It's kind of the same thing at GW. GW is extremely politically active, but when you're talking to Jews who are not either informed or who don't know enough about BDS, what the other side has better than us is they frame it in a way that has nothing to do with Judaism. They say it has nothing to do with Judaism. We're not criticizing Jews. We're criticizing the Israeli government. Look what the Israeli government is doing. And it actually convinces a lot of people saying, oh, this is not about Judaism at all. This is about Israel. And for a lot of Jews on the older side, tend to view them as together. But now among our generation, I would say they're starting to separate. And I think that's why it's become difficult to fight that battle, because people will ask me, how does this have anything to do with Judaism if we're just criticizing a government that's inherently human rights violating, or that's one of the things they say, or like bulldozing homes in Palestine or whatever, like whatever thing they use to attack back at you. And it's difficult, it really is, because you can't convert American Judaism to following something that for a lot of American Jews have no connection to Israel, unfortunately. But
Still a little confusing to me, the whole BBS. Not really much about it.
do
I'm being totally honest. And so even Alyssa, who goes to Sacred Heart, has never heard of BBS. So, and that's a Catholic school, which is probably, I don't know, she's had no issues with anti-Semitism. Probably because there's so few Jews. But I just wonder, I think that's going back to your question, is, so the average student, what's the most important thing for them to know about BBS?
the origins of BDS. That's where you have to start. If you just give them what BDS is on its very front, people are going to be like, wow, I can support that. But if you look at the origins of it and the man who started it, his goal was to destroy Israel. His goal was to wipe it off the face of the earth. And if you tell that to people, that's not an organization or a program that's there to promote human rights. If you want to wipe off an entire country from the face of the earth. I believe his name's Omar Barghouti, and he hates Israel. And it's not about the Israeli government. So if you start off by saying, oh, you don't know anything about BDS, here's what it is, but here's where it comes from, that's when people will say, I don't want to be associated with something that wants to exterminate an entire group of people, especially progressive people, because once they see that, then they're going to realize we can't support something that is inherently anti-progressive. So.
Alice?
What, if anything, are college fellows across the country doing to coordinate their messaging and get it out uniformly on campus?
You want to start? I can start and then we'll go down the line. With my Hillel, the most important thing is reaching out to non-Jewish students, because if you only focus on Jewish students, Hillel is viewed as this kind of actually what Paul was saying before. If you become this kind of closed off community, people don't see why it should be a position that everyone should care about. It's not, it's just, oh, it's just a Jewish thing, so we don't have to worry about it. But if you bring other people in together, not just Jews, but Christians and Muslims and atheists and people who are not religiously affiliated at all will say, well, I know what BDS is, and it's inherently anti-Semitic. And we're here to protect the Jewish faith and the Jewish people. And then once you get those people to join you, then the battle starts to turn the tide. And that's sort of what's important about fighting that war. So.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that Hillel does really well is they provide a space for everyone. So at Columbia in Barnard, it's not really about providing space for like non-Jews, just because there are so many Jews on campus. So it just makes sure that there's a space for like every type of Jew. And that's something that's like really uniting about Hillel, at least on Columbia's campus.
So are you saying that Hillel doesn't actually disseminate information, actually is ready to hand out talking points?
No. There's other resources on campus that do that. There's like an Israel Institute on campus, and there's also a couple pro-Israel student groups. So they will give information and like talking points about BDS and other issues surrounding Israel.
I mean, also look at the 3 schools that are sitting here. My school, Hillel, is part of the political process, so we take over the Jewish community's political movement, and we hand out brochures. We run the BDS, the anti-BDS campaign. In Kansas, I'm sure it's extremely different, and in Barnard, they're more focused on Jewish life than politics. So it's all depending on where you are, and I'll let Paul answer this in a second because he's a different part of the country than we are, but it really depends on the school and how the Hillel wants to take care of it, and there isn't a specific national Hillel way of dealing with BDS just yet. We may see that, but we haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, I think at Kansas, Hillel and Chabad mostly try and stay apolitical. I mean, they get a lot of people, like some of my closest friends are from Nebraska, they're Jews from Omaha. It's a pretty conservative area, but then you have me coming from Connecticut. I consider myself more progressive. So when they're trying to unite the entire Jewish community, when we're only 10% of the school's population, I think they try and veer away from politics just because it's murky waters sometimes, and they focus more on just celebrating Judaism and Jewish life on campuses, and they leave the politics more to student government or Jayhawks for Israel or whatever they have. So.
And not to put you on the spot, Michael, but at Middlebury, is it more like Kansas? Is it more like Barnard? Is it more like GW?
The percentage of Jewish
And how the Jewish students interact one with the other.
Okay, so probably 10 to 15% Jewish. I would say the Hillel is probably most similar to the Barnard Hillel, where it's primarily focused on Jewish life, not political. So what you're looking for?
Yeah, and has BDS come up in Middlebury in the same way as other places?
To be honest, I was abroad in Spain this past semester.
Ah, that's right.
So I'm not familiar with what life on campus is like at this moment. But at least last year, I hadn't heard the term BDS on campus. So I'm not sure. But also something interesting to bring into the discussion. So I go to Middlebury College in Vermont, which has strong language programs. And interestingly, I think in the Hebrew department, there were either 1 or 2 professors, and one of the professors didn't get rehired. So essentially, the Hebrew department is fizzling out, and there won't be a Hebrew department anymore. And it's one of 10 languages that's offered at the schools. So certain students that were majoring in Hebrew can no longer complete their major, or they have to take summer classes, etc. So that was something big within the Jewish student community. There was no more Hebrew major. All of a sudden, it was taken away from that, and there was not much information given to the students that were majoring in Hebrew. So I wasn't on campus this fall, so I'm not totally certain of all the details, but that was big within the Jewish student community.
I actually pose a question to all the students and panelists. I'd like to pose a question for the students on the panel and in the audience. A lot of the BDS and anti-Israel effort is coming within the school itself, from professors who take a particular perspective, and they are actually giving wrong information and actually can also penalize a student who is pro-Israel in terms of their grades and all. Have any of you experienced any of it?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. The question is part of some of the professors, the academics, have at times been accused of penalizing students for their Israel-oriented views, particularly at Columbia. but not only at Columbia. Alice is nodding, particularly at Columbia, but not only at Columbia. And
GW as well.
yeah, and so the question for our students is, has anything like that come up in your college?
Yeah, definitely at Columbia, that's a big thing. Actually, one of the professors just was published on the Hamas website, which was a shocker. And there's certain professors that all the Jewish students know, or a lot of the Jewish students that I associate with, know not to take that professor because they'll be feeding false information that's anti-Israel, and they don't want to be in a classroom setting that's like that. Some people choose, though, that I do know, choose to take those professors to like just see what it's like, because they don't really penalize the ones that I'm thinking of in particular, but they do definitely see like false information. Yeah, even professors who like write their own textbook and use it in the class.
I went to Barnard too, like, and I took classes in Columbia at the time, and I encountered it too. And that was not like a couple years back. So, and it was in the School of Journalism, and it was so anti-Israel that it was so provocative. It wasn't actually teaching, it was preaching against.
Well, just to respond to this, so in GW, one of my good friends took a class where she showed a video of the 2014 war. Now, of course, that was very controversial, but it was not an unbiased opinion of it. It was like children laying on the ground, like the whole whatever. And one of my other friends, who's Jewish, was like, "This is completely biased." She's kicked out of the class and told to leave because she was questioning the professor. And it's, to be completely honest, the professors don't care. They will show what they want to show. But I think what's important, though, is when what's happening in Gaza and the West Bank, and this is going to sound kind of sad, is more exciting for documentarians than what's happening in Israel. And I know you may argue that agricultural stuff is really interesting, but when people want to watch documentaries and movies, especially nowadays, they don't want to see, wow, they're growing mangoes or some like whatever. They want to see war. They want to see something horrible. So this happens to be more and more common, that a lot of documentarians will make these movies or these documentaries where it's only focused on one side of the issue without showing that there's a war going on. It's like showing in the Syrian civil war only one half, and then just being like Bashar al-Assad is saving these people from murder. So that's the thing, it's these documentarians who don't show the other side. And I think a lot of professors view that as academics, but it's not. And Barnard has a huge issue with that. So does GW. But
Yuri?
For those advocating on behalf of BDS that Israel is practicing apartheid-style practices, what is the counterpoint that you guys have in response to that?
Well,
Paul, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so the question was, for those in support of BDS, when they give you their points, how do you kind of counter those?
Well,
Right.
especially with respect to apartheid-style practices, like we've seen in South Africa, for instance, which are horrid. So when they make the equivalency between Israel and South Africa, what happened there, how do you respond to that?
Well, I haven't really encountered any issues specifically like people arguing on behalf of BDS, but definitely when people argue, I guess, that they're anti-Israel more broadly, the big thing is that they're normally more progressive, and so the people they're following on Twitter or the periodicals they're reading online normally are more supportive of a two-state solution, and they're definitely not as pro-Israel, I guess, depending on where you see it, as like a Fox News or something. But I think really my biggest thing, I guess, to push back on them is that I, too, am progressive and supportive of Israel. So I kind of try and explain that you can be progressive and not like Benjamin Netanyahu or something like that, and you don't need to take it out on all of Israel, and you don't need to take the viewpoint of the one person on Twitter who's like super supportive of BDS. You have all these resources online to read, to form your own opinion within the progressive standpoint.
Also, I think people forget what apartheid means. Apartheid is a South African term, and what happens, as many of you know, in apartheid, the white minority took over and forced the black majority not to be able to vote. They took their land away, and people go, oh, that's exactly what the Jews are doing. Jews are not only the majority in Israel, they give full voting rights to Arabs. They completely support minority rights. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Israel was an Arab a few years back. This is not a state of apartheid. People, the only possible argument that they come down to is the wall, as if we just didn't want to have Arabs coming over the wall, even though we have 25% of the population is Arabs. It's what happened during the Intifada. So it's what happened during the first Intifada when people were marching through into Jerusalem and there were fights. People don't understand that apartheid, as a lot of people say, is not a broad term. It is a South African evil, evil term where a white minority took over an entire country. And that has nothing to do with a Jewish majority population giving full rights to the minority and giving them full voting rights. And actually, most recently, in the second election of the 3 elections that the Israelis are going through, 13 seats have been appointed to the joint list, which is a completely Arab and anti-Zionist party. So what I say to them is enough. Enough of this false narrative and false equivalency between a South African term that had nothing to do with that type of control. So you have to argue the history. And the history is not long ago. This is not 1700s. This is 1980. And you literally just open up a textbook, compare it to current day Israel, and you'll realize there is not a single damn thing that they are equivalent to each other. And that's how you fight back against them. So
We have time for one last question. You guys will be at the ONEG. You'll stay for the ONEG, so you can ask them questions at the ONEG as well. Bill, two last. So first, Mike.
I'm curious on your campus, can you talk about the responses to sort of heinous acts of anti-Semitism? I'm thinking about in the Pittsburgh synagogue last spring, or in the German synagogue on Yom Kippur. Can you talk about the response on your campus? Is there any?
There's always a response, usually from Hillel, so far, that I've experienced, especially with all the things that happened over Hanukkah. There's a response to that. They organized something that's going to happen tomorrow for the students who are still in the city. They're very good about acknowledging those types of things, in my opinion.
But the campus, the Hillel is very good. Is on a broader level of the campus, is there any sort of from, I don't know, the president or the spiritual life organization or anything like that, or is it just
It's, yeah, more within the Jewish community, not really from like the administration in the university or the college.
at GW, which I'm going to give the BDS people some credit, what they will do in those awful, awful shootings and everything, that is when they come out and show their solidarity for the Jewish people, because that's how you get people to side with you. Because if you don't show solidarity to Jews when they're shot and killed, everyone's going to be like, these people are anti-Semitic. But if you say, oh no, they're supporting us and everything else, but Israel is where we defer, then it becomes a political issue. And I will give them a lot of credit, because if you make it a political issue, especially in nowadays, there's no way that fight is going to be it's now an even fight, and they do a really good job doing that. They come out with these big signs and saying, we stand in solidarity with our Jewish brothers and sisters, not knowing that they're actually destroying our country and the only country that we have left where we have solace. So
I know at Kansas, so far, they haven't really come out in the school itself in support of individual acts. but every year AEPI and ZBT and the Jewish community have this event called Walk to Remember, and it's supposed to remember the Holocaust. And I know there are like the more higher up people of the university that show out to that event and speak, so they definitely do show their support for the Jewish community. It's just every single event they don't say something about.
Patrice, our last.
I think I'm still having a little hard time understanding BDS. I just have one quick question. So is this something just on college campuses?
Oh, no. BDS extends beyond, way beyond college campuses, but sort of the epicenter and, relates to college campuses. And one of our great concerns is that as the BDS movement has gathered steam, a lot of people, their worldview is formed very much while they're in college. And so if a worldview is formed related to BDS, this does not augur well as we look down the line for the future. With that,
Rabbi, can I just say?
oh, Lisa, please.
We do have Eli Rosen, who is a member of our congregation who couldn't be here tonight. He is currently sophomore at the University of Delaware. He wrote in the spring a very interesting article about BDS, and I have copies of it on the outside to Google if anybody's interested. In addition to just a piece of paper that has some great links that for college students that might be helpful with their Jewish life on campus. So feel free to, if you're a college student or have a college student, to take those.
Or if you're a high school student thinking about becoming a college student, that will also be very helpful to you as well.
I urge you to look at the other side as well. And the reason being, if you only look at your own side and you come in and they actually give you a good point and you're standing there, like, not a good sign. So if a lot of these kids don't understand where they're coming from, they don't understand that it's anti-Semitism, and the moment you point that out to them, they begin to think. And if you just we're just fighting against each other, and that's the way we are right now, this fight will not just continue, but it'll get worse. And just a quick thing, 2 years ago, the BDS vote, when it didn't pass, there was fist fights. People were thrown, like they had to get the police involved, and it's a very harsh subject because they don't understand where they're coming from. So please, I would also urge you just to look, once again, it's mostly garbage, but it's good to see where they're coming from, because then you can find your points to argue back against them. So
Great. Thank you all three for taking the time of being here with us. Bennett and Hannah, we're going to invite you to open our ark. The Aleinu is on page 586. Well, let's begin our concluding prayers with the Aleinu. Those who are able, we rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, la'tet gedula le'yotzer breshit, shelo asanu k'goyei ha'ratzot, ve'lo samanu k'mishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, ve'gor aleinu kechol hamonam. V'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu.
Let's go right ahead. Please be seated. Page 591, V'ne'emar.
Ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו, ושמו, ושמו אחד.
Page 598, we now call to mind our own beloved dead. I ask that those in mourning or remembering the anniversary of the death of a loved one and who have trekked to the sanctuary during Shiva or Shloshim or for Yahrzeit, should you be able, please rise when their name is mentioned. We note during Shiva the death of Alexander Uvarov, the nephew of Stephen Reps. During Shloshim, we remember Selma Fleischer. This Shabbat, remember the Yahrzeits, the anniversaries of the deaths of Regina Augenbraun, Belle Bram, Elizabeth Weissman Davis, Joan Dolcourt, Ida Edlin, Laurel Falk, Rebecca Feidelson, Ida Fleischer, Lillian Garber, Alexander Greenberg, Harriet Marcus, Gussie Matskin, Bessie Mizell, Jock Pollock, Joseph Protter, James Quigley, Francis Rachels, Beatrice Slater, Fanny Spurt, Marcy Trarig, and Murray Weiss. If there are additional names to mention for Kaddish this Shabbat, please feel free to rise and say their names now. A practice within our congregation is to further consider these people. If you're comfortable so doing, we now invite you to share with this minyan a brief reflection or reference about a dear one on our Kaddish list.
Alex was extremely well respected in his community. You could tell that by the tremendous turnout at this morning's funeral in Brooklyn, even to the fact that within 24 hours they were able to raise $12,000 on GoFundMe for his funeral expenses. Extremely bright little boy at 6 years old, memorized the entire New York City subway map. I'll always remember him as a kid at 8 years old called my mother and said, "Hey, Bobby, guess what? I got great news. My hair is growing." And as a young man, he strived to be a New York City police officer. Unfortunately, passed away the other day at 28.
Each Shabbat, we also mention 6 names amongst the 6 million murdered in the Shoah, the Holocaust. We now remember Dov Deutsch, Edward Frey, Esther Klein, Zalman Klein, and Hawk Kodzin. In remembrance and solidarity, and on behalf of those for whom there is no one but us to say Kaddish, we now invite all present to rise if you're able. Page 598. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divrach hirutei v'amlich malchutei, v'chaye chon v'yomei chon, v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mavarach le'olam lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudusha b'rechu. Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'romav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Zochanam l'bracha, may their memories be for blessing, and let us say, amen. Please be seated. Od Yavo Shalom is on page 657.
Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam, salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam. Odivo Shalom Aleinu, Odivo Shalom Aleinu, Odivo Shalom Aleinu, Be'akulam. Odivo Shalom Aleinu, Odivo Shalom Aleinu, Odivo Shalom Aleinu, Be'akulam.
Lisa?
Shabbat Shalom. First, let me thank Rabbi and Linda and Ethan for being wonderful service leaders tonight, and true appreciation to Adam and Alice and Paul for participating on our panel tonight. It was very special and very informative, and we really appreciate that you were here. Good news, birthdays, anniversaries. Debbie. Happy birthday! Yom Huledet Sameach! Are you sure? Yom Huledet Sameach! Yom Huledet Sameach! Yom Huledet Sameach! Yom Huledet Sameach! And isn't it birthday Shabbat? Well,
It is birthday Shabbat.
Thank you, Debbie. Anyone else have any good news to share? Oh, really? It's Friday. That's true. Yes, Allison. Woohoo! Mom. Okay, Saturday, tomorrow morning, January 4th at 10 a.m. is Torah study. Sunday, January 5th at 9:30, B'nai Israel Religious School meets, and at 9:30, Rabbi's Introduction to Judaism class will meet as well. For those wishing to travel to Manhattan, a No Hate, No Fear rally will be held at Foley Square at 11 a.m. Tuesday, January 7th at 11 a.m. is Rabbi's Adult Discussion Group, and at 4:15 that afternoon is Religious School. Next Friday, January 10th, 7:30 are Erev Shabbat services, and it is IAC Shabbat. Upcoming events, January 28th, Yingo at the Watermark. What is Yingo? Well, Yiddish bingo, of course. This event is sponsored by our sisterhood. Tonight's Oneg is sponsored by our B'nai Israel family. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Debbie, I'm going to ask you to rise. Other January birthdays, rise if you haven't already, if you're not standing. And so, may the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless the members of this congregation who during the months of your birthdays have arisen to celebrate your milestone in reverence for God, the Torah, and our people. May the Holy One bless you and your families and prosper your deeds. May this be a time for you of love and special joy. Baruch atah Adonai, mevarech hashanim. Blessed are you, Adonai, who blesses the years. And let us all say Amen.
Amen.
And again, happy birthday.
Thank you. Happy
Kiddush is
birthday.
on page 123. We join together with Linda in Kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, be'ahava u'ratzon, ihilanu, zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit, ki hu yom tehillah, l'mikraye kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim, kivanu b'charta, v'yotanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, ve'ahava uvratzon, pichalta